Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Iconic Dollcast. My name is Sage, your host. Welcome back to another episode all about dolls. Thank you so much for listening. Today, I have Chris on the show, and this is a really fun chat, of course, about dolls. I'd say most of the discussion is about Broadway and dolls from Broadway shows, but we definitely go off on a few random tangents. We talked a lot about some business choices that have been made with quality in doll world, and we also had an extended discussion about the Katy Perry doll. I think it's definitely important to mention that this episode was recorded a few months ago when the whole Katy Perry doll fiasco and ordeal was happening. But honestly, these are some of my favorite kind of interviews. Obviously, you want to have a focus, but it's actually kind of fun for me when whoever I'm interviewing and I kind of steer off the discussion outline. And that's just because I just feel like usually when that happens, it means you're having a really good connection with someone. And, in doing this podcast, I've learned so much about just people and keeping people interested and engaged. And that was definitely a learning process for me. And the great thing about doing this podcast is I really get to know someone and their interests. And I don't know, it's just pretty fun to go off script for a bit when you're chatting with someone, and it all still feels so natural and genuine with the conversation. This is a really good one. Anyways, Chris is a super, super talented guy. He actually works on Broadway. He does some incredible design work and cosplay, and he also collects dolls and has tons of fun content, including a brand new YouTube channel. So we're going to jump into it. Also, I do want to say, my apologies. This episode is coming out a day late. I thought I had all my shit together, but I did not. And just with the holiday weekend, so much got away from me. So sorry that this was released a day late, but we're here. As always, please follow me on Instagram at iconicdollcast or Britney Spears Custom Dolls. You can follow me on TikTok at Britney Spears Dolls. And here is my interview with Chris, all about Broadway dolls, doll quality, and also, unfortunately, the Katy Perry doll. All right, my friends, today I have Chris on the show, and Chris is here to chat with me all about doll collecting and the dolls based off Broadway shows. Chris, thank you so much for being on the show. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm super excited to talk about this. Broadway, I did an episode not too long ago about the Wicked dolls and that whole catastrophe with that. And I have, just being upfront and honest, I'm not really a Broadway person. I don't know much about it. So I'm excited to learn from you today because I know those dolls are kind of a big deal. But before we get into dolls, tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do.
So I work in costuming. I work for a couple of Broadway shows. I also do a little bit of designing. I've been collecting dolls officially as an adult since 2009, and it started with a Broadway doll, actually, from The Little Mermaid on Broadway.
Very cool. I mean, that kind of brings me into my next question. So, where did your love of dolls begin? Were you allowed to play with dolls as a kid?
I was that kid that everyone in my family kept buying me dolls because I was just drawn to them since I was very, very little. Do you remember Mattel used to make for Disney, not Barbie size, but these little 6-inch ones called Musical Princess and Perfume Princess and Bubble Princess, and they had a lot of holographic dresses?
Yes. Yeah, I do.
So those were my first love of dolls. I remember I have pictures of me with my grandfather who's no longer with us, and I'm on his shoulders, and I have this one of Belle that's dangled in front of his face, and he was an old school Italian guy, so he has a cigar in his mouth while there's a Belle doll being dangled in front of his face. And then there's pictures of me with meeting Belle in Disney World, and I'm handing her my Belle and Ariel dolls. Those little ones were my first obsession.
Yeah, I had those too. I definitely had a Belle one, and I think I had a Cinderella too. I don't know if I had Ariel because I had a Tycho Ariel doll. That was my first doll that I ever had. So she was always I was no one is replacing this doll. So I had a bunch of the other characters, but I stuck with my Ariel Tycho doll. She was my best friend. When did you start working on Broadway? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Oh, yeah. So actually, cosplay, because I came from the world of cosplay, that got me into working on Broadway. I always did theater growing up, like middle school, high school. I was in shows, and then I actually went to college for costume design. Right out of college, I did start working in film and TV and a little bit of theater, but then the world of Comic Con kind of swept me away from actually achieving anything professionally with costuming. But then actually, I was doing gender bent versions of Elphaba and Glinda from Wicked, and I made a friend who made replica versions of Elphaba's dress from Wicked on Broadway, designed by Susan Hilferty. We became friends, and then he was coming to visit in New York City, and he knew the assistant wardrobe supervisor for Wicked the musical and asked if I wanted to get lunch. And I said, yeah, I totally would love to meet somebody who works at Wicked. And then I got to talking with him, and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about working professionally in wardrobe again. I would love to sit down with you and get advice. And then he eventually did. Kevin Huff, he's still the assistant at Wicked. He's been with the show since the beginning. And he gave me my first job on Broadway, which was Wicked, which was a lot because that's my favorite show. So, it was kind of like seeing the actual wizard behind the curtain, like not to make a reference to the Wizard of Oz through Wicked, but that actually was my, oh my God, I'm here. Like seeing somebody dressed as Elphaba, like in all green. They took me to watch her literally defy gravity. I got to do a lot of great stuff. And now I technically am on my seventh show working on Broadway right now.
Wow.
Yeah. So I recently just closed my first full-time job with a show called A Wonderful World. It was the Louis Armstrong musical. And now I'm with a show called Buena Vista Social Club, which it's a beautiful show. I'm very happy to be working on it. So I got to do a lot of good stuff.
I love that. And yeah, I looked at a lot of your cosplay stuff. That's very cool. So you put all those costumes together yourself, right?
A majority of them, yes. I've done things in the past where I'll design something and then commission somebody, or I kind of will piece together things, but I do a lot of painting and distressing and dyeing of clothes. I do some sewing. I'm not the best. I would not promote myself as a stitcher in any way, but I've just always loved costuming. And dolls kind of were a big factor for me as a little kid because the fashion element of dolls was, I think, my introduction to be like, ooh, I think this is what I like. Because I always gravitated towards, Disney princesses. That's my favorite thing in the world. And I think that led to me to where I am today.
That's amazing. And so I have you on the show today to talk a little bit about these dolls that are based off of Broadway shows, and there's a ton of them. Again, I'm not like super, I'm not super involved in Broadway, and I don't know a ton about it, but I do know that obviously Broadway is a huge fucking deal, right? And the fact that they have dolls that you can get based off of these shows. I know a lot of them are some of the bigger shows that are out, like Wicked, and I've seen like Little Mermaid and all that stuff. I think a lot of Disney correlations are in there, and a lot of the times when Disney shows go to Broadway, they definitely have a big push for merchandise. So tell me a little, let's just do a little brief background on what like a Broadway doll is for just anyone who might not know.
Yeah, so essentially there actually aren't quite that many. I feel like it's more the film adaptations of musicals get a lot of dolls. Like there's so many Grease Barbies. There's Barbie did My Fair Lady dolls and Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. The first fashion doll that I know of in history, both actually for 1998 is when they came out. The Phantom of the Opera did FAO Schwartz exclusive, and then Mattel did a Belle from Beauty and the Beast on Broadway. And this was 4 years into Beauty and the Beast being on Broadway. So it became a cultural phenomenon. That really changed theater, that show.
Yeah, and so do these shows, they normally partner with big companies like Mattel to produce these dolls?
It really does depend. So a lot of times, the main times that it's happened, it's either because there is an anniversary coming up for the show, or Disney was just being Disney. And Disney is the only company that is kind of part of a larger entertainment group. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
Like, Wicked is owned by Universal, but I'll put it this way. And I don't think this is illegal for me to say, but when I get a check from Wicked, it comes from Wicked LLC. But when I get a check from, I do The Lion King on Broadway. And when I get a check from The Lion King or people I know who work also for Aladdin, our checks come Disney Buena Vista, like the Disney company. So we're part of like the large Disney corporation. So because they have the money as that big corporation, they're able to do dolls of almost every show that they produce. Also, because when people are coming to Broadway shows, when you think about like, what am I going to bring the kids to? The Disney shows are usually the first thing that will come to mind.
Right.
Like almost everyone I know, when I talk about how I work at the Lion King, they say that was the first show I saw on Broadway. I'm like, that makes sense. And they still sell not fashion dolls, but they sell a lot of toys at Lion King on Broadway, plushes based on all the costumes by Julie Taymor. So when you have shows like Beauty and the Beast or Frozen or Aladdin, where there's a princess character, it's obvious to want to make a souvenir doll for them. So for Wicked, that's a whole separate thing. They actually did it for the 15th anniversary, but then they didn't do it for the 20th, which was shocking because I feel like they should. I guess because the movie, they knew that they were already going to make the movie dolls, so they didn't want to. I'm not sure, actually. I never asked them why, because Mattel, I think, had to go to the Broadway show to check at the costumes so they could make the dolls.
Okay, because I was going to say, like, when we're talking about a Little Mermaid doll that's based off the Broadway show, it looks drastic. It's not like, it looks drastically different than what you would think of Ariel in the cartoon. Like, they actually base them off of the costuming in the musical, right?
Yes, and I think it is to be like, you got this at the show, because most of them were only available at the shows.
That was my next question. I was gonna say, like, I know, like some of the bigger ones, like Grease, you were mentioning, like I knew you could buy that, but they tend to keep them at the show. That's where you get them, correct?
Yes. So they did again, like for like FAO Schwartz, when the Phantom of the Opera did their set with FAO Schwartz of Barbie and Ken as Christine Daae in the Phantom of the Opera. That kind of how I take that in is because FAO Schwartz is such a staple of visiting New York City as a tourist. It's such a thing, like, oh, like when you have kids, you're going to take them to FAO Schwartz for toys. Not so much anymore. It's changed since they left Fifth Avenue and went to Rockefeller Center. But Phantom of the Opera is also a show. It became so iconic, even if you don't care about musical theater. You could literally have never seen a Broadway show. But I feel like even, you're not big into theater, but I feel like if you saw that half mask, you know what that is.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's only a handful of shows that the general public can just look at visually and know, oh, that's what this is. And Phantom of the Opera, I think, was like the perfect thing to do for something like a New York City visit. Oh, wow, look at this Phantom of the Opera doll set. And then Wicked, when they did the 15th anniversary, that was 15 years of Wicked. Wicked had been seen by millions of people. It became a cultural phenomenon. So it only made sense to make dolls of those.
Of course. And so I've never been to New York City. I just imagine though, when these Broadway shows are going on, there's just like promo for it everywhere. Correct?
Well, yeah, it really just depends. It's theater is such a different market from film and TV because we're not as accessible to everybody around the world as, you and I can be like, oh, did you watch the new Star Wars movie? But it's something that's a shared experience for a lot of people because anybody can just get to a movie theater. And that's why there's so many more movie-based dolls as opposed to theater-based dolls. Accessibility, I think, is a big part of it, especially when dolls like my Little Mermaid doll, my Ariel from the Broadway show, it is so rare that even if you try to like go on eBay right now, I would be impressed if you actually find a listing for Ariel, the Little Mermaid on Broadway doll, because it was so rare. And by the time it was produced, the show was about to close. It actually did not have a long life on Broadway. It didn't even make it to 2 years. And if you do the math, they probably only were able to make maybe 1,000 of those dolls at most.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I imagine a lot of these had a very limited quantities made just because they're not mass produced dolls. So that I'm sure can make things go up in value quite a bit. So You collect
Mhm.
a lot of dolls. I follow you. I've followed you for a while. So when it comes to like Broadway dolls that you collect, like how is your collection going? Like tell me a little bit about that.
I actually, I actually have every doll that I could
Okay.
possibly want, except for only because I just recently learned about these through somebody that works at Wicked with me. So apparently in the 2000s, Madame Alexander did two fashion dolls from Wicked. They did like some of like their classic toddler looking dolls. I like a Barbie. I like a fashion doll. So they made two of a particular scene in Wicked. Now, you've seen the movie Wicked?
I've seen it, but I can't say that I like remember much from it. It's just not my thing.
This scene was actually pretty big. It was the dance scene, if you
Okay.
remember the where they do the little
Yep.
dancing. So they did dolls for the costumes of the Broadway version. Apparently there was only like 300 of each made. So those are the two where I'm like, they need to be somewhere because I would love to have these in my Wicked collection. But I will also survive because there's so many other dolls, like outside of Broadway dolls too. There's so many dolls in general that are on my list right now. I'm like, oh, I want this. I want this. I can't afford that. But maybe someday.
One doll that you have in your collection that I kind of mentioned it already is the Little Mermaid one. And that doll is like so interesting looking because they literally did base it off of how they do the costume on the show. So kind of describe that to people.
Actually, it's cool because I actually am now working with somebody who worked on costumes for The Little Mermaid on Broadway. So I got to ask, like, what was that like? Apparently, it was a doozy of a show backstage. One of Ariel's, the women who played one of Ariel's sisters on Broadway. Do you know about the show? About how they wore Heelys in the show?
I know what their costumes look like.
Yeah, so they wore Heelys to mock them swimming. And this one actress, I will not name her, but she told me that her hip is permanently higher than the other because of the Heelys.
Damn. Because the doll looks really funny. Because
Could you imagine?
it's supposed to look like I can't even describe it. I don't even know how to describe it because it looks she still
Hmm.
has her legs, but it's like meant to look she still has a tail too. So it looks kind of like
Hmm.
she's a little bit I don't even know the word to use, but she looks wonky, but I understand. I mean, just looking at it, I got what they were going for with the doll because it was like, oh, like because obviously like the actresses they can't be like swimming like actually on stage. So I see what they did. I just thought it was such an interesting design that they did for the costume itself, and then they translated it into the doll as well.
Yes. So the way I interpreted when I first saw the show on Broadway was I think that the skirt that the actual actress's legs are in, does that make sense?
Mhm.
I think that that's supposed to be the water, and that the illusion is supposed to be that her body's kind of curved while she's swimming. They've done Little Mermaid productions where they do have them all on harnesses and like flying up and down, kind of like Peter Pan in
Mhm.
productions to do swimming. And I mean, that's fine, but I kind of love the camp of like them literally swimming around in heelys.
Yeah, it's iconic for sure. And like as someone like I know I've just seen like a lot of people like there's a lot of memes of that doll and it's so funny cuz it's like yeah, it's pretty funny looking, but I think they did it right cuz that it looks like how the actresses look when they're wearing it. So it is what it is, but I just think that's one of the more memorable ones for me just cuz I've seen it so many times. Are there any Broadway dolls in your
Uh-huh.
collection that were like super hard to get?
Super hard to get. Well, the Phantom of the Opera set is not very cheap. That one was actually a 30th birthday gift for my parents, and I was very excited because I probably would never have thrown down the money that that costs for myself. It's very hard for me to really justify hundreds of dollars sometimes unless I do something where I sell a whole bunch of dolls, which I've done in the past. I'll like sell a bunch of dolls and then use that money to justify buying another doll. Like, I also collect those 17-inch limited edition Disney dolls, and I did this whole purge of dolls just to buy the ones that I wanted that cost hundreds of dollars. The Phantom of the Opera set is one of my favorites, and I never thought I would ever own it.
Do you, oh, those Disney dolls, those limited edition dolls can get up there. Do you? I mean, and I totally relate to that. I mean, every once in a while, like I'll go through my doll room and I'm like, okay, I have this doll that I bought that I haven't looked at in a decade. Do I really need this? No. So I'll sell it just to make some money so I can
Mhm.
buy something else. But I imagine like the value on these dolls is pretty high for some of them just because they are the limited quantities for most of them. Give me like a ballpark range of one of them that you think might be like more pricey or rare or looked after than others.
Well, actually, I just recently learned this because the Broadway musical Wicked dolls, not the ones with Wicked.com, but the Wicked, the musical dolls, apparently the Elphaba, I got these retail price, like I was on my computer ready to go when these came out. Apparently the Elphaba is going for like $400 or like $300,
Wow.
which I'm just going to say this. And you as a Barbie collector will understand what I'm about to say. This was a black label Barbie doll produced, or pink label Barbie doll produced in 2018. So I want you to think about the quality of that doll with that price point,
Mm,
and it doesn't make sense.
never does it?
No, and I just I love them because they are wicked and because they are from one of my favorite costume designers, and it's very special because I never thought that they would ever produce these dolls. But I just kind of hate the quality, and I hate to sound like this person, but having literally been in the same room as multiple versions of those actual dresses and costumes, I just keep looking and like, you know what? They could have done this. They could have done that. I don't know why they didn't, try to throw in some money and give Glinda actual sequins on her dress. But then I have to stop and say, well, it was a manufactured doll that they made. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm sure it has to be like 10,000. I don't think that there was like a limited amount of that. I don't, they never said it online. They never say like how much there is of those dolls on Mattel.com. I don't know why.
Well, sometimes they do, and sometimes I think it's a lie. That's just my opinion. I think Mattel is notorious for. I think Mattel knows their audience, especially with their higher end dolls. I put that in quotes because they know adults are the ones that are going to be buying them, so they know that people are going to start shelving out money no matter what. And what's interesting to me is obviously we're in a really a changing time, if you will, when it comes to money and what things are going to cost. And I think Mattel Mattel needs to sit down and really, I mean, I know they've been I just it's going to be so interesting to see what happens because they already again, this is just my opinion. I love Barbie. Like I will always love Barbie and but as someone who has spent so much money on Barbie and dolls, I feel like it's my right to say that Mattel cuts corners all the fucking time. And it's like, I don't know that Mattel's ever been in a position where they maybe have realized at this point that we have realized that things are definitely not worth what they charge for. And I think it's going to be so interesting because once these tariffs start hitting and like I've talked about this on the show, I do not keep up with politics. I just don't care. It just sucks the way things are because now my Barbies are going to cost more money, right? But we're already spending an obnoxious amount of money on dolls. And I think for me, at least as a consumer, I've realized like I always talk about how like Barbie fashionistas, like they're cheap, right? And they're $10. And I think that's why I can justify buying a Barbie fashionista because it's $10. I don't expect like an articulated body and a really nice costume because she's cheap. The reason she is cheap is because she is cheap. And I think a lot of people give Barbies hate for that. And it's like, yeah, but like, what do you expect? You're only spending $10. But when it comes to like these tariffs and stuff, I don't think I would spend an extra dollar on them. Like, that's a big difference when you start looking at things. So I think Mattel is going to be in an interesting situation when all this stuff starts going into effect because I think they must realize that like people are already it's like those Barbie extras are a great example. It's like, yeah, I'll pay that, but if you charged any more for it, absolutely not. And I don't know how their quality is already so low that it's like I don't know how you guys are going to justify charging any more money for these because they're already cheap and that's fine, but I'm not willing to pay any more money on those. So I think Barbie sales and doll sales are really going to decline in the next few years.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. And as I keep hearing, for like, I want to say for the last 10 years, maybe whenever I watch people like on YouTube with dolls or just anybody talking, Mattel is always in this conversation of a quality decline. And I've kind of noticed it. I wasn't really always into Barbie. I always appreciated and loved Barbie, but not a Barbie collector. But now that I kind of dipped my toes a little more into just regular Barbie, I have started noticing, you know, how different it really is. There's a vintage toy shop in Astoria, Queens that I go to called the Museum of Nostalgia, and they have a lot of Barbies that I collected. And I did one day, I found one where I knew it was a recent doll, and then one from when we were kids from the 90s. And I literally just picked them up and I felt the difference. I
I'm
just
sure
literally
you
just
did.
felt the weight, literally the weight of difference.
The thing is, though, like Barbie was much more expensive when she was higher quality. So, like in the 90s, like Barbie wasn't cheap. She was like $30. And that's why we were getting all these gimmicks to come with Barbie. Yeah. Barbie was not, she was not,
Were they really?
oh, yeah, for sure. Like 23 to $30 to get a totally hair Barbie, for sure. And that's why what people don't take. And now Barbie costs $10. So it's like, obviously they've made cuts on it, but they have lowered the price on how much Barbie costs. And so my thing with that, and I know this is about Broadway dolls, and I mean this kind of will seep into that too, because I see a lot of the
Mhm.
extra Barbies that we're getting or extra dolls, like dolls that are based off of Broadway shows, like I think we're gonna see a lot less of that now, at least for the next 3.5 years, because it's gonna cost too much for people to buy them. People aren't gonna buy them.
Also, because souvenir dolls from like a Broadway show, those are a little more expensive to make because they're not making a larger amount of quantity as if one that you can find in a Toys R Us or a Target.
Right.
So you think about the you think about how much they're actually going to produce of them. Certain shows like Aladdin has been going on for 11 years. Those Jasmine dolls, they probably have made so many of. But
Right.
when you are doing something with a company that makes you souvenirs, it's less harm and foul. There's no harm, no foul when you're making t-shirts. You can make so many t-shirts because the general public will buy the t-shirt. But a doll is so much more of a investment for a smaller thing like a Broadway show, which let's if we're going to get honest about working in theater, it's a very, very tough industry. It's very rare that a show will survive these days more than a year. There, like every Broadway show that opened in the year 2023, not a single one of those shows is still open right now. And some shows that I think are great. You know what you would have loved was Once Upon a One More Time, which was the Britney Spears musical
I've heard, yeah.
about fairy tale princesses.
It's amazing.
I saw it twice.
And it was
I
good.
saw it twice, and it's fun. It's very Barbie movie-ish, actually, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. I've read reviews and stuff, and again, like musical theater is not my thing, but I do know I would have enjoyed that just because I
Mhm.
enjoy Britney Spears, right? And it's like, whereas when I'm going into something like Wicked, like I don't care about it, so it's like I don't know. I just get so bored, and it's not. I listen. It's not based on. It's not that I don't think these shows are creative and unique and the actresses and actors are not talented. Like I think they're definitely talented and they're amazing, and I know
Mhm.
what goes into producing these shows. It's just for me, like I can hardly sit through a regular movie, much less a musical. So it's just not, but I know if it was something based
Uh-huh.
off of Britney Spears, I'd be like, okay, this is the best thing ever. I didn't know. I think I did know
Yeah.
that closed. I didn't have high expectations for that, just because we are living in a shit economy anyway. So people aren't exactly like splurging out their monies to go to something like that. But had it been a traveling show, like I probably would have gone to it.
Well, never say never because sometimes a company will do it, or your local theater might end up doing a production of Once Upon a One More Time. You never know. If you do like Britney Spears, you might like And Juliet, which I think is going on tour or is on tour now. because it's all Max Martin's music.
Right.
So it's got some Britney, it's got some NSYNC, some Backstreet, some Kelly Clarkson, unfortunately, a little Katy Perry, which with actually, this made me think about it. You've seen the Katy Perry doll, right?
Yes. It's such a disaster.
I was dissecting it
I
because
saw.
I was thinking about these Broadway dolls though, and how they use smaller companies and they only make a smaller amount. And this Katy Perry doll, it seems like it was only meant for, I guess, her Vegas residency, that you could only buy at her Vegas residency. That's the only way I could justify that insane price tag.
I would, okay, but okay, yes, I think the concept is cool. And like Britney Spears should have for sure done something like that when she was in Vegas.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
but I would have never, okay, if it was Britney Spears, maybe, but like
you would.
ever pay $175 for something like that. And what's so funny to me about the Katy Perry doll is like, it's so clear that no person that knew anything about dolls was consulted when they put that together, because it's like, the one thing that I keep, it's like everyone's like, you can piece this together with parts from aliexpress.com, not sponsored, for like 10
Mhm.
bucks. Like it's literally it's a dollar store doll. And for them to put that price point on it, like I could see maybe like 50, $75 just cause it's a
Mhm.
Katy Perry doll, so it's got some kind of exclusivity to it. But to put that on, I don't know. And honestly, like I'm gonna guess that Katy Perry had nothing to do with that. I'm not a fan of hers, like, and it's not because I don't like her. I just have never gotten into her before. Um, but I do feel sort of bad for her because I think the world is shitting on her. And I don't want to say that it's warranted because she hasn't really, it's not like she's out here like Kanye West fucking being a horrible person, but she has made some questionable decisions. And just to add the doll on top of things, it's like, girl, you need to go touch grass because like you're not. And again, like who knows how much Katy Perry has to do with her merchandise? Because a lot of famous people don't. Like it's just part of, you sign your name and we'll do whatever we want with your likeness. But um, to put something out like that and charge $175 for a doll that is just, I mean, I'm sure, I don't know how many people got her, but like I'm just gonna guess, be careful with her because she will break. Like that shit is not quality. Like it's a budget doll placed in a budget package with a very high price point and a name on it. So they think they can justify charging $175 for it. It's absolutely crazy.
It's absolutely crazy. But also, I am not a fan of Katy Perry, and I'm shocked that you didn't bring this up as a Britney fan. But do you remember when she
Yes.
made that little jab about mental health?
Yes.
About when she goes, "Well, I haven't shaved my head yet."
Again, those are the questionable
That's when I did
decisions
my
I'm talking
180 on Katy
about.
Perry.
I know people love to shit on Britney Spears.
Yeah.
I think the thing with Britney though is that she's such a cultural icon that a lot of times when people say things like that, they don't understand I mean, you do not fuck with Britney fans. Like, do not fuck with Britney fans because I
No.
mean, you will get dragged across the internet for months. They will not let it go. And so, yeah, she's done some questionable
No.
things, but for people to just be like, oh my God, like, it's just, I mean, my entire TikTok right now is just, oh my God, what a flop, what a flop. Like, she sucks, all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, guys, she's still a person. So, like, I don't know. That's just me being a nice person, I guess. Like, I feel bad, but I semi understand where she's just not connecting with her audience anymore, and she's done nothing to evolve her image or her sound or anything. And I know a lot of people have, again, sorry guys, I know this is about Broadway dolls, but it all comes full circle. Um, I know I know a lot of people shit on her for working with Dr. Luke. Understandable.
Oh yeah.
He's a piece of shit, but there's a lot of people still working with Dr. Luke. Katy Perry just happens to be the most mainstream person to keep him on. That's a decision that she definitely should not have made, but I also don't, again, I don't know that I don't know that Katy Perry has a choice. She's signed to a major record label. If they tell her she's working with Dr. Luke, she's working with Dr. Luke. And that's kind of where I feel bad for her, because I don't think a lot of decisions when it comes to that is her choice. Her going into space, really bad idea. She definitely could have said no to that, especially when it's like, what a mess that is. I'm just grateful that they're all okay, because historically sending civilians, and that's what Katy Perry is in this situation, is a civilian who have not gone to school or have zero education about
Yeah.
space. Like, let's not forget when the Challenger explosion happened, when they sent a teacher into space. Like, that's not, it doesn't historically work out very well. So I'm grateful that those women are all right, but they should have all really second guessed that decision, but everyone's shitting on Katy Perry and no one else.
I think because at least one of those women were a real scientist, and I was like, okay, sure, you can go to space. But I think that's not such a waste of money. When I think about the money that could have been spent with that to do something really good for the world, like when Katie was like, "Oh, it was such an amazing experience." I'm sorry, I'm gonna shut on Katy Perry, but I was just like, it was like, remember that terrible Titanic submarine disaster that happened, was it last summer?
Yeah.
That was another one where I was like, the money that these rich, crazy people have spent and not doing something good for the world, it's crazy. It's,
It is.
if I had that money, I would totally like do something like actually good for people
Oh,
if I had that money. But
I
but
definitely
I
would
work
not
on
be going to
Broadway.
space. Yeah. I feel bad for her, but I do understand that the backlash is there for a reason. And since this podcast is about dolls, when it comes to that doll, I feel super just like, girl, you need to reevaluate your audience. You're not Madonna, and you haven't had a hit in years. And like, she's still talented. I think Katy Perry is just stuck I think she's stuck in 2010, and she doesn't understand how to
Yeah.
break out of that. But again, when it comes to her albums, I don't know anything, but I don't know that Katy Perry has a choice of who she's making. If she wants to make a record, they're going to tell her, okay, well, this is who you're doing it with.
I don't know. I feel like by this point she should be able to like have a choice. She's been
You'd
around
think
for
so.
20
You'd
years
think
now.
so. You'd think so. But Katy Perry doesn't own her masters. She doesn't own. She's not.
Oh,
She's not as. She's not. Again, she's not Madonna. And like even Britney Spears, like
right.
I don't think for the most part, when she was making music, like I don't think she ever got to really choose anyone who she was working with. No matter what she said, it's all the record labels that decide that stuff. But that's aside the point.
Yeah.
I just think she needs to cancel her tour. I was just looking the other day, and like it's the show that's here is in like a month, not even, it's less than a month, and there's thousands of tickets still available. And I'm just like, don't push her out to do that. Like the venue's gonna lose money, you're gonna lose money, people are gonna be
Uh-huh.
pissed off. I do think her tickets are going to start selling a little bit better, because people are going to go see her because they think it's a train wreck. And hey, I'll go see Katy Perry for $10 if tickets are $10 the day before. But
I've done that for Broadway shows I thought were going to be disasters, and then they did end up closing. I go out of morbid fascination.
back to Broadway dolls, I I was going to ask you, are there any shows that you wish dolls were created of? It doesn't have to be a super successful show. Is there ever a show you worked on and you were like, "Wow, this costume or this character would have made a great doll"?
Not a show that I worked on, but I mean, so I will say there are costumes from shows that do have dolls that do exist that I do wish were made in doll form. Like the Phantom of the Opera costumes are some of my favorite costumes, and Wicked has so many. Like Sage, if you can, don't do it for me. Do it for yourself. Like if Wicked is in your area, I know you don't care, but if you get like a good cheap ticket, just go and just sit and just look at it, just stare at it, because there's so much amazingness to stare at. Like the Emerald City scene in the musical is such a feast for the eyes. As opposed to, but then there's musicals that I never got dolls that I was shocked at. Like Les Mis never had dolls, and I always
Mm,
thought that Les Mis
that's a big one.
good
I know
because it's a
that.
Cameron Mackintosh. Yeah, I mean, that is like one of the mega musicals. What I would love is, you know how Barbie does the Inspiring Women series?
Hmm.
they have no dolls of like the great divas of musical theater. They have done music people, they've done people in film, but and I keep thinking, and I talked about this on my TikTok, I would love certain musicals because of that actress playing that role. My favorite musical theater woman is Bernadette Peters,
Okay.
and she
I know
was the
her,
witch.
Brandy. She's in Cinderella, right?
Yes. She was a stepmother in Rodgers Hammerstein's Cinderella. So she. Oh, and you can watch this on YouTube if you want. So she was in this musical called Into the Woods, and she was the witch. And that's another show I would love dolls of. But the way I look at it is, if a Broadway diva is being presented to Mattel and saying, "We're gonna make a doll of you," I don't think a lot of these actresses are going to say, "Oh, make the doll of me in this costume." It's going to be, "No, I want it to be like of me in this fabulous dress that when I sang at like a concert."
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think because they have to pay the costume designer a beastly little budget to be able to replicate their dresses. And I think that's why sometimes they make not so many of them. And then there are two shows where I personally don't care if they make the dolls, but I feel like if there are two Broadway musicals on right now that will eventually get dolls in some way, Hamilton
Okay. That's
and
shocking.
Six.
What was the second one?
Shocking. Six.
I don't know what that is.
It's about the six wives of Henry VIII, and you've probably seen TikToks of people in their costumes. They're all each one's like in a monochromatic, metallic little costume, and like the one TikTok sound that's like, "You're a nice guy," and then baby the next, so maybe I don't know. I'm sorry,
It's
but
okay.
Hamilton, I feel like. But Hamilton is about to celebrate 10 years on Broadway. So I feel like if any show, it will be that. They have pop vinyls of Hamilton. It's the only Broadway show to have pop vinyls.
Oh, okay. What's your favorite doll that you either have or you want that is themed off of a Broadway show?
Oh, well, I love my Phantom and Christine set. I've said this so many times in so many forms. Not out here, just like in my world. That show really was, I saw in eighth grade, and I still have
I've
with
seen
me my
that
Playbill
movie.
from when I saw it.
Is it
No!
bad? Is that not good? Oh, okay. Never mind.
No. I'll put it this way. I'll put it this way. It's like the same that if you like met somebody and you ask if they've seen Star Wars and they go, "I've seen Attack of the Clones."
It's a good movie. Are you kidding me? My favorite Star Wars movie is Episode 1, and I don't care what anyone
I
says.
know.
I do not
I
care.
I know. I
I'm
know.
a
You know.
big
Okay.
Star Wars fan, okay?
Okay. I'll come up with a different. It's like someone saying that their favorite Beauty and the only time they've ever seen Beauty and the Beast is the Emma Watson version.
Okay. Oof.
If you do care to, I'm going to add on to the list for you. There is a 25th anniversary production that they did for Phantom of the Opera that is available to watch online. And the woman who played Ariel on Broadway is the Christine.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's the closest you'll ever get to seeing the show of how it's supposed to be.
Okay. So I know the Broadway dolls, it's very niche when we're in the doll collecting world. So thank you for talking about that with me. But tell me about what else you get into. I know you love Disney. So like tell me
Mm-hmm.
first of all, let's do this. What's the most recent doll you purchased?
Actually, I have it right here. And it was an accidental purchase because I put in an offer on Mercari thinking that I wasn't going to actually win because this is pretty rare, apparently. It's one of the Tycho
Oh,
ones.
Spot.
Yes! And so because Ariel's the one I collect the most of, and I saw this and I was like, oh, wait, but like, it's so cute. I don't really collect any of the Tycho ones. I have four Tycho dolls. This is my fifth Tycho doll. And because, we're the same age, but for some reason, Tycho Little Mermaid is not part of my nostalgia. I,
Hmm.
I, I must have had at least one Tycho Ariel doll. but I don't remember. My world for dolls as a kid was the 1997 Little Mermaid dolls. That I was, and I'm trying to collect everything from that line. I recently got all the Tropical Splash.
Nice. Yeah, I have so many. You can't, maybe you can. They're, where are they? I think
Yeah.
they're all in here. Yeah. They're all down in this area is where all the Tycho dolls are. I love them. I know she looks like so young, but I loved her. And I have
She
so
does.
I still have my very first one. Um and
Oh,
I treasured her. And so I'm always down for. I don't have that one though, but I think I had it when I was a kid. There's been a few dolls that like I never found again, and there was a few Ariels that I used to have the one with her little mermaid twins, like her little baby, or like she was a babysitter and one of because those are mostly they're loosely based off of the TV show. That's why you get like the extra characters who don't look like the characters. There was one where she had a set of Little Mermaid twins that she was babysitting, and I had one of those. I had Spot for sure. I love the Tycho Ariel dolls so much, and like this is great because Ariel's my favorite too, and so she comes up quite a bit. I just love how like I know Anna and Elsa are like the it girls, and that's great. Like no shade to Frozen, but like Ariel's my girl, and I just love that Ariel today is still so relevant that like you cannot go to Target or Walmart and them not have at least one, probably two at least Ariel dolls that you can get. I feel like they make the most dolls out of her next to Anna and Elsa.
I do remember my friend used to work at the Disney store in Times Square, and I was just really curious. This was actually what year was this? So this happened like 2010, 2011. And I asked her out of curiosity, I'm like, who's like the most popular Disney princess for the kids? And she said, we sell Ariel the most out of anybody. And I feel like that must still be true.
I think it
Yeah.
is.
I'm actually going to do a video soon about ranking. She has to be. I mean, I've written essays about her. I'm actually about to do it for my YouTube channel. I'm about to do a ranking of every doll in my collection for Little Mermaid dolls because that's the thing I have the most of.
I could never sit down and do that. So the thing with you, and we'll talk about your YouTube channel in just a second. YouTube is like the one social media
Uh-huh.
app that I think has separated itself from the others pretty well, where it's like you can have a huge following on YouTube and then nothing on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and vice versa. So
Mhm.
I do not do the whole
Yeah.
YouTube thing because it's just a whole nother market I'd have to break into. And I also hate being on camera. So props to you for being able to do that. I just feel so awkward because I would love to sit down and start doing like, oh, let me show you all my Ariel dolls and I'll tell you which ones I like best. But I'm like, I get so frustrated because I'm like, ew, I look weird and like sound weird, whatever. But Ariel is definitely
Oh,
like she always there's always something Ariel that you can buy. I feel like they're always pushing her out. There's always limited edition dolls of her coming out, like no, not nonstop.
oh,
So
all the time.
I totally vibe with that. What else do you? I mean, yeah, you love the Disney limited edition dolls. Which one's your favorite?
Out of the ones that I have, because I get very specific with them where I kind of it's almost like they're not just dolls to me. They are decor and like how I wanted to present like in my room, even though it's all in my parents' house on Long Island because I can't keep my entire collection in my apartment in New York. My apartment is probably smaller. It definitely is smaller than my own bedroom back at my parents' house. So, the collection stays there. And I have two absolute favorites. One is the Saks Fifth Avenue Cinderella that I have. It is just so exquisite. It is one of the most beautiful things I've ever laid my eyes on in my entire life. And then I have this one. They did this film premiere series that I think was it's such a smart idea where they took Disney princesses, only six of them, and I wish that they continued this. And I bitched about this on my YouTube channel. What they did was they did fashions inspired by the year their film came out, and they styled them as if they were going to the premiere of their own film. And so I have one of Belle because I was born in 1991. Beauty and the Beast is my favorite movie. So it's this very gorgeous, sentimental thing knowing that, there's this weird. I don't know if this is narcissistic or not, but like the knowing like, oh, my favorite movie came out the year I was born, and Belle looks like me because she has brown hair. It was like, I'm like, is it narcissistic? But I love it.
Amazing. I have only a couple of them. I have the Ariel one from, I think it was like 2019, 2018. I don't know. It's when there was also Vanessa. You know what I'm
Yeah,
talking about?
that's a good one.
Yeah, she's pretty. I have the Halle Bailey one
Oh,
too.
yes.
And then I have an Elsa. Right? Yeah, I have an Elsa from
Yeah.
Frozen 2. Um, what else? I know you like Tonner dolls, right?
I have a few. I do love them, and I always look at them online, but they are very expensive. And if like when I like when eventually I hope to trick a rich man into falling in love with me and marrying me, so that I can buy. Actually, Tonner did really, really gorgeous Wizard of Oz dolls, and I want every single one of them. They even did some for like people in the Emerald City, so that's why I'm like, ooh, I want them all someday.
I've been trying to get him on the show for years. I think he's an older gentleman, so he doesn't quite understand like
Oh,
the whole because he comes here, he works closely with um this lady who owns a doll shop in Denver, and they have like an exclusive deal with him, and he's here all the time. And so I think I should just email her and have her do the whole here's what you need to do, because he doesn't seem to understand, but that's okay. Because I know Tonner dolls are a big deal. I don't own any, but I would if he made like a Britney doll or something. But
oh. Well,
is
they're easily customizable.
are they? Yeah. Are they
Mhm.
porcelain?
No, no, they're
Okay.
they're plastic.
Okay. Well, Chris, thank you so much for being on the show. You have a brand new YouTube channel that you've just opened. So tell everyone where they can find you on the internet.
Yes. So my YouTube channel is Princess Chris Collects, where I talk about dolls. My Instagram is Chris Calfa Official. That's my main. And then I have a doll Instagram that I never post on called Princess Chris Collects as well. On TikTok, I'm Princess Chris Returns. And I just started a Patreon actually for my costume designing. And if you watch my YouTube videos, I'm doing a series where I take different Disney designer dolls that I don't care for the designs of and redoing how I would have done it. So that has been started. The research has began. It's a series called Design Doctor, and I think my Patreon is Princess Chris. Or if you look up Chris Calfa on Patreon, then I will come up.
Well, thank you so much for doing this, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. That was so much fun. Make sure you guys check out Chris on all the fun platforms. Chris, thank you so much for being on the show. You guys, I've been talking with Chris for years now, so it was really exciting to get him on here. Let's see. Next week is a doll check-in episode. Hopefully I will have my shit together and get that out on time. And then I need to still figure out what I'm doing for my 100th episode special. I cannot believe I am almost on 100 episodes. That is crazy. Make sure you check the doll check-in episode out next week, and hopefully I have an idea of what my 100th episode will be. If you're enjoying the show, please give me 5 stars, leave me a nice review. It really helps get my podcast out to everyone. Follow me on Instagram at iconicdollcast or Britney Spears Custom Dolls. Follow me on TikTok at Britney Spears Dolls, and I will talk with you guys next time.